there, ref. That's he got the ball.
Yes, everyone. Welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Dave and Jack here to give our season predictions. Get ready, strap in for some delusion. Hopefully some sort of balance, maybe on some of ours. But I do expect that Dave and I will go a bit far on plenty of them. And turns out we actually have, without even looking at each other's predictions. I didn't want to cheat. I didn't want to, look at Dave's before I made mine. But I feel like we actually have a lot in common, as a little sneak preview. So let us know how you differ. Let us know what, your predictions are as we go through them. Plenty of categories we have to get through here. So if you can for us, if you're watching this back, if you're watching this now, really do appreciate you guys tuning in. And also, if you can for us, smash that like button, get in the comments, please. And already good to see a few people in the house. We got Kieran, we have Hennessy, the one and only Hennessy. Appreciate your support, sir, as a member as well. And we also have DeFarsher enjoying his afternoon. Hopefully everybody's doing okay. Luis K is also in the house here. But Dave, I think we get this show on the road because we have a fan show later that we have to also get everybody else's predictions for, which I'm looking forward to see how those compare. And also, everyone, if you are listening to this right now, if you are interested in joining a fantasy draft league that will be exclusive to all of our members, that we had the elite members have first come, first serve to get their chance to join. But at the moment, there's still some spots left, about 4 to 5 spots, I'd say, left in the league. If you do want to join it, it should be in the community section, all the, information that you need to join it. It is a draft style league. So we are going to be doing like a video call, kind of Zoom call type of thing tonight where we sit down, maybe have a beer, whatever you want, a soda, and, we can enjoy each other's company, shoot the banter between each other and watch as we pick our various teams. There's also a regular fantasy league for all the other members in this lovely community of ours. But anybody who is a fan show member, the link is out there for you guys to join that draft league if you are interested in it. So please do so if that's your type of thing. But let's get this show on the road. Let's get it started. And the first question, which is, I think, a very important question. Not everyone does this one with their channel predictions, and I think they should. Will Ange finish the season? Dave, looks like you say he will.
Yeah, look, for me, there's a lot up in the air right now. There's a lot of fans that maybe are starting to predict that he won't see till Christmas. And I understand the reasoning behind that, right? The second season under a manager usually goes tits up for Spurs since Pochettino's departure. And we haven't had a manager in the dugout that's completed 2 seasons since Pochettino's departure as well. So I do understand the logic behind it. And also, let's not forget, we're entering multiple competitions this year. 4, some people would argue Ange couldn't handle the 3 we were in last year, let alone add another one into it. So I can understand that to a certain degree, that those points of view. However, for me, I look at it a little bit differently, Jack. I think the players are a lot more used to his system and his tactics. I think they will be better and more well used to it heading into this season. Also, Ange Postecoglou has spoke about this being a long-term project anytime we speak to him. He says, yes, he wants to win trophies, but he's also talking about building us to that point. And also, the club, when they hired him, said this is going to be a long-term project. Many people thought he'd be sacked last season. He wasn't. So I think, he could surprise a lot of people and hopefully finish out the season. However, I am concerned, though, Jack, that Pochettino is waiting in the wings again for another job. And I just have a sneaky suspicion many Spurs fans would rather Pochettino come back to this club. When you're looking at when we've got the likes of the young talent coming through, that's one thing Pochettino done brilliantly at Tottenham. He brought a lot of them through, which formed the basis of that squad that we had to be able to go and try and win the Champions League, a league and stuff like that. And his football isn't as gung-ho as Ange Postecoglou's, and that's my worry, that there's many Spurs fans that would rather head into this season under someone like Pochettino. However, Postecoglou, he won a lot of fans over very, very quickly last season, and I think he might do the same this season, Jack.
I kind of am also anticipating that Ange will finish this season, but I only wrote I hope so because I do share some of the concerns about the tactics and also the concerns about Ange Postecoglou's reluctance to change, right? I can understand that he doesn't want to compromise his own philosophy, his own principles. I think that's totally well and justified. And to be honest, the majority of other managers around the Premier League more or less do a version of the same, where they don't want to compromise too many of their principles. But I feel like, from what we've seen from preseason, and it's only preseason, but the fact that we still did concede a lot of goals, set pieces didn't seem to be addressed. There's also that concern about, certain managers have actually figured out, it feels like, this system where we do get hit on the counter and on the transition very easily. And we also have moments where we are practically defending for our lives in some of those counterattacking moments. And better teams, more quality teams can punish us in those moments. And I think Bayern Munich were a version of that. We're not going to be playing teams of that sort of quality on a regular basis, but I think Ange has to technically look at his own system or look at his tactics when he does come up against some of the better teams in the Premier League, because they will punish you in a variety of ways. They can punish you with set pieces, they can punish you on the transition or on the counter or various other ways. And I wonder if Ange has come to terms with that this year. If he hasn't, I do worry for him, because I think every manager in the Premier League at one point has been chewed up and spit out, and then they kind of come back to their own and they, figure things out from what they've learned. And Ange has made it very clear that, he hasn't, technically, changed anything, or he hasn't, felt like he needs to change or compromise too much. So I get a little worried, because sometimes I wonder if that's just Ange saying that, just to say it, to show that he's not a guy that will cower to those type of questions. But if it is the case that he doesn't make any changes tactically, little tweaks here and there, I do worry for how things will go. And also, when it comes to results, Dave, if you start strongly, usually the players buy into what you're doing. But the way that we ended the season last season, I wonder if there are some question marks or some doubts amongst players in the squad about the tactics, about the gung-ho nature. Last thing I'll say is, lots of fans wanted these gung-ho tactics, and lots of fans wanted this attack-minded manager. And I was actually down for it as well. I'm personally more of a defensive person myself. I don't like conceding goals in the way that we do, but I had to come to terms with it, that this is what the majority of the fan base wanted. This is also what technically is the Spurs way. This is the Tottenham way to play. And I can get down with that, and I can understand that, and I can reason with that. It's just that with Ange Postecoglou, I wonder if we've had a little bit too much of it, of the attack, philosophy. And if he doesn't, start strongly, I worry for him, basically, if he doesn't start strongly. If he does, then we will have a good season, and he will finish the season. I think it's just dependent on these first 10 games to see how it goes.
No, there's two things I'd like to say as well on the back of what you said there, Jack. I think one for me is, I don't think many fans will be as forgiving if Postecoglou doesn't adapt to learn how to defend against set pieces, doesn't make an adaptation to the counter-attack. I think last season, he was given a lot of a free pass by a lot of fans, purely because we understood, that he has to be able to put his philosophy in it, instill in it, and stuff like that. But now that he's added players and his players to suit his system, which we've been told, a lot of fans are going to be very unforgiving if some of them same types of goals that we were conceding last year at that rate happen again this season, which will put a lot of pressure on him. So I do think it is up to Ange now to prove to us that he was spot on with the signings, despite the skepticism about him, and that he's been spot on about sticking with his system, despite the skepticism around it. Now, Ange is probably hoping bringing in the likes of Dominic Solanke, will add goals up the other end, but also maybe help us out with defensive set pieces and stuff like that. But look, it's a big season for Ange Postecoglou. I've made it no secret. I do like the guy. I'm a big fan of Ange Postecoglou. I actually don't mind his football, although I do agree he needs to shore it up a little bit heading into this season. If he can keep a few more clean sheets and get that goals down, it will propel us higher up the table than where we finished last season. So look, it's a big season for Ange Postecoglou. There's a lot riding on this. I would argue sacking another manager isn't going to solve anything. It's only going to put you back in the same position. So let's wait and see what happens, Jacko.
That's the other reason I wrote I hope so, is regardless of my doubts of Ange Ball and some of the tactics involved in it, I don't want to go through another manager change, to be perfectly honest. I can't really put up with it. It's just too much change. It's just too much work. Dave and I have to go through another sort of tactical session of figuring out what the manager wants, what his sort of philosophies are. And to be honest, we just do that far too often every couple of years. So I would just prefer if Ange could stay in charge for the rest of this season. But like always, managers, they depend on results. That's what they're judged by. So we'll see what Ange's results end up going by. But let's go on to our next question. Where will we finish? So, Dave, regardless of what I just said earlier, maybe I'm almost contradicting myself, but I think Spurs will end up taking fourth. There is even a chance if Ange were to get sacked early that I think we could get that big manager bounce from whoever comes in next. And Spurs, this is where we usually finish in and around. We were so close to doing it last year. We just dropped the ball towards the end there. And I know people are expecting 6th, 7th place finishes with the Europa League. I've just gone for 4th because that's just kind of in and around where Spurs have been usually finishing. It's kind of the law of averages for me.
Yeah, look, it's weird because we just done a creators prediction, season predictions, which will be dropping tomorrow, and quite a few people predict us to finish a bit lower down the table than what we have predicted. However, Jack, for me, I will caveat this by saying I think we could go further if we address certain issues, like shoring up that defense, like being able to deal with set pieces and stuff like that. But if we don't, I think we might still be able to get away with 4th. But I caveat that by going, Liverpool are an unknown. Aston Villa might take a hit being in Champions League. Can they keep up with a couple of competitions? We might actually be the beneficiary of that to get this 4th spot. But you would like to think with Solanke coming in, he can add more goals. Whether that's going to be enough for us to get into a title challenge or not, I'm not quite sure. But I do think you'd be able to add us enough to be able to hopefully drag us into that top 4. I think Bergval's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he could displace Maddison. And if he does, I predict he could be our best young player this season. And hopefully he brings a bit more potency going forward. But also with us having a natural striker, it might unlock a lot more from Pedro Porro down that right-hand side. He's got a wand of a foot. He might up his production. It might even bring James Maddison into the 4 now that he's got a striker up there, that he can play off and stuff like that. So my prediction is based on us improving in them areas, based off us being an improvement with us actually in the tactics, understanding them a lot more, but also the beneficiary of maybe the unknown with Liverpool and also maybe the added pressure on Aston Villa this season. So that's why I predicted 4th, Jack.
Yeah, the team, if we were to compete for 4th this season, I think it would be most likely with Aston Villa, but there's also the chance that Aston Villa could have a bit of a Newcastle season where they don't actually know what it's like to handle the balance of a Champions League campaign as well as a Premier League one. The Champions League and the Premier League are just such high quality competitions that it is hard to balance both in the same season. And Unai Emery, from what I can tell, he's a guy that does really well in usually one of the competitions that he's in. And then it's not like he prioritizes one or the other, but he does seem to get that collective mentality to push for a trophy in one of them. So I wonder if they're going to be pushing for top 4 again, or if they're going to be pushing for something in the Champions League there, because he is a skilled manager. And technically, he's not going to be able to drop into the Europa League, which is actually where Unai Emery usually thrives. But Spurs, I think, would be able to hopefully balance the Europa League a little bit better than what Aston Villa will be able to do with the Champions League. I think with the Europa League, we will come up against teams that Ange Postecoglou should be able to rotate the squad, should be able to give some players some rest. And then I think we have a lot better younger players that normally you would play those players in that type of competition who can carry us through it. So that's just based off the hope that we can do okay in the Europa League, that we can balance it as well as the Premier League campaign. Of course, that's only out of hope as well as delusion. And then also when I look at some of the other teams like Man United, I mean, I think Ten Hag is probably going to get sacked this season. I don't really think he's going to have much of a great Premier League campaign. I also look at some of the other teams like Newcastle, who Eddie Howe is being tipped to leave. A lot of their big name players are being tipped to leave. So I wonder how strong their campaign will be. With West Ham, I mean, they've never really finished as high as 4th, at least in my lifetime and in a long time. So I just don't expect them to get that high up the table. And Chelsea and Maresca, as much as we have concerns about Ange right now, I think Chelsea still to this moment that look like an absolute basket case of a club. And Maresca, according to a lot of Chelsea fans, has actually looked worse than even Pochettino did in the preseason and even during his initial period. So I wonder how long even Maresca will stay in charge. And there are a couple of other clubs that I'm not really that sure of, really, if they're going to even do that much better than us or if they will even be that convincing. So to be honest, Dave, 4th is up for grabs for a lot of clubs, including us as well as some others. So we'll just see who is technically the 4th best. But I don't think any of these clubs will be in anywhere close to the Arsenals or the Man Cities of this league. And who's to even say if Arne Slot does well with Liverpool? They've not even made a signing yet. There's rumors of a lot of their big players leaving. So it's a tough one, actually, to predict 4th. And so I just said maybe Spurs just kind of trip their way into it, almost undeservingly kind of trip their way into 4th position because the rest of the teams are not that convincing either.
And look, to Kev G as well, he says here, can you explain that we're basically one player actually coming into this team, i.e. Solanke, that we really improve. We need at least 3 or 4 players vastly superior to last season's best 11. Look, I agree with you that we need more signings, Kev G, 100%. But, everyone goes on like Postecoglou is naive. These tactics don't work. Okay, he's going to have to tweak them if he wants to go and really win a trophy. But let's not forget, we finished 5th last season. And despite us, a change in the rear in goal for the first time in 10, 11 years, losing your best striker, a massive change across the back line as well. We had a lot going into last season and we still fared better than what many did. I get that we need more signings, but it doesn't mean that everything is absolutely crap and that we're going to be worse off this season either. With that one addition, you have Archie Gray that's also come in. You also have Bergvall. Okay, he was signed last January, but he's here now. I do think we have a bit better squad depth than what we have last season. People look at players and go, international, yeah, that's a bit of squad depth. However, I don't look at it like that. For me, it's about players that are hungry to be here, want to get on the football pitch and showcase their talents. And I think we've got a lot of youngsters in and around that squad, even some of the ones that we've signed, that I do think will create that. And at some point, if Ange Postecoglou suffers what he did last season, he has the option to go to them youngsters. If he doesn't, he's going to suffer the same fate as other managers like Jose and Conte. But if he does, which he has done so far in pre-season, and some would argue, okay, people go, but you're hinging a lot on kids. But we look better with them in pre-season, and most people have said that. So age is only a number for me, and that's what I'm basing it off, Kev G. Hopefully, you can understand my logic behind it now.
Feel free to disagree with us, agree with us as we go along this. Please, everybody, if you can for us as you tune in, smash the like button for us, please. And also, I'll make another announcement here as people are kind of joining in here. We have a fan show later on tonight where you can give your own season predictions to us and see how you differ, see how you compare to our own. We'll be asking you a lot of these similar questions that you see on screen here. So if you do want to get involved, feel free to become a fan show member, and we'd love to see you on that fan show later tonight. And also to all the fan show members, if you are interested in joining our exclusive members only draft league, we do have another fantasy league, but there is also a draft league that will be running tonight. The draft is tonight, and we'll be doing a video call for it. Feel free to join. It's going to be in the community section for all of you fan show members. The link is there. Everything that you need is there to join it. There are only a few spots left. So if you are interested in doing that and you can make the call for tonight, feel free to do so. We would love to have more people involved in it. But let's keep this thing moving. FA Cup finish, Dave. We think we're going for a semifinal. Now, the more I look at it, I think Spurs have to give one of these domestic cups a real go. And I think with the FA Cup, I'm just basing this off of with the route that I think Man United had, as well as another club, I forget which one it was. It might have been Chelsea or something like that. One of the clubs just had such an easy route, basically, to that final. I think it was Man United. And I feel like Spurs could probably, if we're lucky enough, get something similar where we come up against, the Maidstones, we come up against the Colchesters and whatnot of the world, and we trip our way again, into a semifinal. And as long as we get favorable opposition and favorable teams, I think there's kind of a random kind of opportunity for Spurs to get into an FA Cup. It just feels like we've been matched with teams oftentimes that are quite good, quite early. And if we get a favorable draw, I think there's a chance we could go to a semifinal, especially if we come up against weaker teams.
Yeah, look, do you know what? For me, Jack, I think we could. I think at some point the look of the draw is going to have to be with you. I think we might avoid in the FA Cup a City or something earlier on, unlike previous years. But also, we haven't helped ourselves in previous years. We come up against shit teams and we've been knocked out as well. However, I do think, now when I look at the squad and with it being in the second half of the campaign, the early rounds are when Europe has died off a little bit and stuff like that. I do think there's a golden opportunity for us to actually go deep in this FA Cup. However, my problem is when we do come up against one of the big dogs, which you have to beat at least one or two on your journey to be able to win that trophy, we tend to fail. And I do think semi-final is where we'll probably bow out. We'll come up against a Liverpool, a Man City, even Chelsea do us in the cups and stuff like that. And I just think we'll bow out.
Yeah, I don't see us actually lifting a domestic cup trophy this season. But when it comes to, I think I meant to put a Carabao Cup here for this one. I think Dave and I expect a 4th round finish. Sorry for the typo on that one, everybody. My fault. But for the Carabao Cup, Dave, or for the League Cup, I don't know. It just seems like it's never really been something that managers have prioritized. We often kind of rotate the squad, in these games, and we end up being embarrassed quite early, or we have been knocked out quite early in these League Cups. So sadly, I get a similar feeling here that, one of these, either the FA Cup or the League Cup, Spurs might get knocked out pretty early. I just wonder, since the competition is slightly better in the League Cup and there are certain clubs who can prioritize it instead of us, I wonder if that ends up happening to Spurs, where we get knocked out early. Whereas in the FA Cup, there's a stronger chance of you having an easier route to a final or to a semifinals. That's what I'm hinging my bets on. We get an easier route in the FA Cup, and then in the League Cup, Ange tries to make some, rotations. He tries to make some substitutions, and it ends up backfiring on him, kind of like what it did last season.
Look, I think it's going to be given that we're going to make squad rotations and that in the cups. People call for squad depth. What do they call it for? So that the manager can make rotations. But when he does, everyone has an absolute hissy fit about it, which absolutely drives me mad. I think in modern day football, it's part and parcel. When you're trying to compete in all 4 competitions, there's going to be rotations. And early rounds of the cup is going to be when it happens. Now, traditionally, you should be able to put out a mix and match squad out there and get the job done. But because of some of the shit that we've had over the last few years, we haven't been able to. Now, last season, when you look at a lot of the players that played in that cup game against Fulham, where are they now? They're not at Tottenham. A lot of them have been chipped out. So Ange Postecoglou was looking at that, looking at who he can rely on, who he can't. And look, I do, like I said, in the FA Cup, I do think we will fare better. But when it comes to the Carabao Cup, the reason why I think we might only see 1 or 2 rounds of action in this cup is because this will be in the midst of that Europa League campaign. And I do think we'll go more strong in the Europa League campaign than what we will in the EFL Cup. So I think one will probably have to give alongside the Premier League games. So for me, I think it will be this cup.
Yeah, it's always a tough one to predict. I think the FA Cup as well as the League Cup, and for some reason I just get bad vibes every single time about the League Cup. It just never has seemed like, one that Spurs, except for Jose Mourinho, where he had actually also a bit of an easier route to the final. It just feels like you need an easy route because the managers do tend to make a lot of changes for those kind of competitions, and I just see us kind of sadly getting knocked out early in that one. We do have a super sticker though coming in from our one and only DJ Samuel, our resident Tottenham fan and a resident fan of the Irish Hotspur in the local Tottenham area. And he's gone for a behind the scenes super sticker. I haven't seen that one before used by DJ. I like it. Well, this is sadly not going to be behind the scenes. In the past, Dave and I have recorded these season predictions behind the scenes as a pre-record, but we decided to put it out live to you guys so you can rip us apart and, pretty much just defer with us as we go throughout these predictions. So sadly, not as behind the scenes as it normally has been in the past, DJ. Really appreciate you though, man. And at any point, let us know, DJ, if there's a crazy prediction that you might have for this upcoming season. Big up to you, sir, and really appreciate your support for the channel. And now let's go for the Europa League, Dave. Now, this is where I've gone total happy clapping, total delusion, and it really isn't based off any real rhyme or reason. I just have a sneaky feeling with the Europa League this year that Spurs, it's going to be the one that we will try to prioritize. It's going to be the one that we will try to put a lot of our focus and attention towards. At least that's what I hope with Ange Postecoglou or whatever manager ends up being in charge. I just don't see us getting knocked out in the group stages or whatever, the new format is. I just don't see us getting knocked out early or anything like that. And some of the other teams in the competition, I don't really see them being that tough. Man United is one of them. You also have, I think, Olympique Lyon, who are also kind of all over the place as a club. It's actually not the toughest of competition. The biggest team that I think would most likely win it, if I really were to put a bet on it, I would probably put it on Roma. Led by Daniele De Rossi at the moment. I think they're a strong outfit and are building something special over there. But apart from that, I'm not even that keen on any of the Europa League teams. So I just then wonder, who's to really rule out Spurs from going deep into that competition, especially if we really put our attention towards it. You have guys like Romero, who recently won a Copa America. He has that winner's mentality in him. And if the squad as well as the manager really do prioritize this competition, I think there's a good chance we could go deep into it. I'm just going to say we're going to win it because I'm desperate and I'm delusional and I'm happy clapping. But I like the Europa League. It's one of my favorite competitions, even if Spurs are in it or not. I think it's a special one. I've always had a soft spot for it. And so I'd like to see Spurs win it. And it is a competition that technically, historically, has favored us. And we've done very well in. Obviously, when it, in a previous rendition of it, when it used to be different, it used to be called a different name. But I do like the Europa League, so might as well hope that we go deep into it.
Yeah, look, when Tottenham used to be in the UEFA Cup, we used to, get to the knockout rounds and stuff like that. But look, with the way this Europa League is, it's going to be very hard to get knocked out of the group stage. There's so many teams in the group stage. I think the top 8, if you finish inside the top 8, you automatically go through to the last 16. The next, how many ever after that, then play a 32 tie-off, and then the winners of that then face the teams that come out in the top 8. But it's a bit different this year in the group stage because you do play 4 teams from pot 1, which is the best teams, and then 4 teams from pot 2, which are the crapper teams, which we should be beating. However, in years gone by, especially under Jose and Conte, we have been embarrassed in this competition. I don't think we're going to suffer the same fate under Ange Postecoglou, because I'd argue we're going to go for teams under Conte and Jose Mourinho. We sort of invited that battering onto us. So I do think it'll be a bit different there. And I do think we will get out the group stage. I'm hoping we can get out in the top 8 and make ourselves to the last 16. I do think we will get to the quarters, Jack, but when you hit the quarterfinal stage, that's when all the riffraff is knocked out. Whoever makes it there deserves to be there, and they're there for a reason. And again, I just feel like coming towards the end of a campaign, the quarterfinals will be, if we are in contention for the top 4, we already know the manager's going to be told, sack off Europe and make sure you qualify us for Champions League football. So that's why I'm going to go with Tottenham for the quarterfinals. Although I would put it out there, I want us to go all the way to Bilbao. It's a very easy place for me to get to. I can get a boat straight over. There's a new boat route from Ireland straight into the Basque region. So it'll be very handy for me to get to. So I want us to get there.
I'm absolutely feeding Leighton Evelyn as much happy clapping as I can, in this predictions show. You said, "Can you build a bridge for me?" Absolute delusion eyes. I think you went for the wrong emoji there, Leighton. I can't zoom in enough, but I think you need the one that has sort of the squirrely sort of circles in the eyes when it comes to that. And Big D saying, "Yeah, I really hope so." Jack is right. I'd absolutely love to win this, and I believe it's our best chance of silverware. I'm not even sure if it's our best chance of silverware. It's just the one that I hope we put most of our eggs into the basket for, where we put majority of our priority and our attention towards. I think it's a very good competition. I think it's still a prestigious one that I don't think anybody really would, bat an eye, or no one would shame us. No one would, call it a small trophy or anything like that if we were to win it. I think it's still a serious enough competition that you should take it seriously. And of course, us Spurs fans, I mean, we're desperate for anything. Clearly, I'm desperate for anything at this point. And I would just like to see us get at least a strong campaign in Europa League. I do not want to be embarrassed in that. I would like to go deep into that competition. I'm not even really technically expecting us to win it. I just have hope that we really do prioritize it. And if we do, who's to say that we don't go far into it? And then from there, you never know what happens with these competitions. Maybe you do get lucky. Like I said earlier, if anybody did hear my more serious version, I personally think it will be Roma that actually will lift the trophy. The Italians know their ways around these competitions. As David said before, I think Daniele De Rossi is a very good manager who's clearly inspiring this Roma team to a strong, campaign in probably their respective domestic league. But also, I think competitions like this, someone like a De Rossi would really take it quite seriously as well. So for me personally, I just think it will be likely Roma. But if Spurs take it seriously as well, maybe we can go deep into it. Good to see so many, though, people in the house here. Over 200 already. Paul Brown is in here. Love you, my man. We also have DJ Samuel saying there's DJ, at the end of the day, everybody has differing opinions and also season predictions as well. They're going to be all over the place. Everybody's going to have different predictions, different expectations, different feelings around the squad. And I think that's totally normal and totally acceptable. But sorry, Dave, I cut you off.
No, I just want to add in, look, regardless of whether people think we're going to go deep in the Europa League or not, we're guaranteed 8 games, and we're back in Europe. I don't know about you, but last season I was so pissed off we weren't in Europe, watching other teams midweek. Teams that, okay, yeah, of course they deserve to be there over the course of a season. But I just felt like they don't. And I feel like Tottenham is one of them clubs that always belongs in European football. And for me, I'm just delighted to have it back. And I am going to happy clap my way through the 8 games. So that's not for you. I'm sorry.
And really appreciate your support from earlier, DJ. And also Saba, he's in the house as well. Thanks for tolerating us as best you can on this one. Hopefully you put at least some cotton in your ears during some of our prediction. And he says, got to go, guys. Good show so far. When we all did our league predictions, I was shocked how many set the same position as me. Maybe I'm not negative Saba. When we put this out for hopefully tomorrow, we kind of said the same thing. I was saying, plenty of people like to, say that I think I said to you basically in the predictions that you call yourself negative, and I said you never know, people might agree with you in this channel prediction, Sab, and maybe Dave and I might look like the more negative ones or whatever you want to call it, really. And so you will be plenty surprised by how many people had a similar opinion to you on either Ange or just the season in general. And there are a lot of kind of commonality, common predictions amongst the creators there. So I actually, was surprised to see that you weren't alone in all of this. You actually had some good company around you. I really appreciate your support. And thanks for being a good sport about these predictions as well. You've been very kind to us of late, Sava. But yeah, I even said at the beginning of the recording, I was like, you never know, Sava, a lot of people might agree with you. And I didn't even watch the predictions. I didn't cheat or anything ahead of time. So I was well surprised that so many people actually were in the same boat as you.
Yeah, so was I. Like, me and Jack don't watch the videos until we actually watch them and record it. So we're not watching it 2 or 3 times so we can give you our best reactions and stuff. But I was a bit worried, Savvy. You seem to be aligning yourself in with the happy clappers. They're all thinking the same position as you. So I would argue you might want to go and retake it, lad, and send in another one, put us further down. No, I'm only messing. But do you know what? It's not only the people that we had on the channel predictions, which we'll be dropping tomorrow morning, by the way. But, I see it a lot across socials in our chat here and across many other channels. Many people are predicting, a 6th, 7th finish and maybe do have a lot of concerns heading into this season. So, I don't think you're too far off like you think you are, Sava, to be honest with you.
Thanks for the support, man. But yeah, I was laughing at it. How many people had a very similar prediction to you, despite you calling yourself negative, after your prediction. I was like, well, it's not that negative. I think Dave and I now look like the negative ones, or whatever you want to call it, with how much we were disagreeing with you guys, during the channel predictions, and also how much we're disagreeing with our own delusional predictions here. So really do appreciate you, my man. And Michael saying, need a reliable all-action midfielder to win things. Michael, I mean, if you have been in the chat before, there was our own Paul Markey, who's been very, I think, adamant about this, that he would agree with you. We need an all-action midfielder. He personally wants Manuel Ugarte, the Uruguayan international, to come in. I wouldn't be against it. And a lot of people feel like we do need someone who can not only win the tackle and be strong defensively, be that dog in the midfield, but then also can actually lead, kind of the build-up play, can be that tempo setter, that guy that can start moves off. Of course, everybody's looking for the next Rodri over at Man City to have in their own club or something similar. But Spurs do probably need a player like that in this system. It feels like Basuma sort of has some of the attributes, but maybe doesn't have every attribute required to be that all-action midfielder. And same thing you could say of Bentancur and some of the other players in this team, where they maybe have one little attribute missing or something like that in their game that doesn't necessarily make them the perfect deep-lying kind of all-action midfielder in the number 6 role. But maybe you're also talking about a number 8 or number 10. I might be putting words in your mouth, Michael, but really appreciate your support. And I know plenty of people would agree with you in the chat. And if Paul Markey is watching this back, I know he definitely is.
No, 100%. Look, I think many fans are looking at that midfield now and saying, that we definitely need someone in that number sort of 6 role that can do a bit of everything, really. Not only break up play, but be able to have a bit more of an expansive range, bar Basuma. I do think Basuma's a really good player, but I also think sometimes we invite our own problems on by playing Basuma there rather than in that number 8 role, because every time he gets the ball, we either have to dribble through or play short passes, which actually allows teams to get press on us. If we had someone with a bit more of expansive passing range, we could hook it out a bit further out wide, out to the wingers, out to the fullbacks and stuff like that, and create different avenues for us to be able to go and attack, hit them early rather than having to play through them, stuff like that. So I do agree with you. And at least now I know my answer on why Basuma hasn't got that passing range yet, because he's too busy on the gas. If he put that down and developed his passing range, he could be that guy we need. Archie Gray will come in here. He will provide you probably a bit more solidity, but is he still going to give you that passing range that we need and stuff? You look over preseason, he tried it against Kiel, he tried it at times against Bayern, and he couldn't do it. They were underwhelming, they were hit short and stuff like that. So I do agree with you on that aspect. However, I don't think the club will. I think once they signed Archie Gray with Bergvall coming in as well, and how, Archie Gray looked brilliant there at right back against Bayern Munich, especially on the ball, tight feet, and Bergvall as well has looked very good preseason. So with them coming in here and hitting the ground running, I personally don't see another midfielder coming in here, to be honest with you, Michael. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, and if the club do, well, then we'll get out the fireworks, my man. We'll have a party.
Yeah, thanks for the support, Michael. And I think a lot of people agree with you in the house that we do need more midfield quality, especially in that sort of all action type that you're mentioning. And even some people are saying if only we got a midfielder that showed, I think Dragon D's Nuts says we need a mid who is consistently peak Basuma quality. And I'd agree, right? That's probably what we're looking for is when we see Basuma at his best, he does sort of do it all and he does have actually every attribute you might need. But we don't get the Basuma of, the consistent Basuma as often as we would like. Mark, member for 12 months. Appreciate your support, Mark. Member of the Mark Army, one of the leaders of the Mark Army. And thanks for even tolerating us for as long as you have, Mark, for a whole year. And he's saying, have we employed a set piece coach yet? Come on, you Spurs. Listen, that's where my original prediction with Ange, of him staying around this season, I kind of wrote I hope so for that part. Because sometimes I think Ange has come across as, I don't know, dismissive is probably the right word of these type of things. And I just don't know if he can afford it, especially with, I think, teams like Forest, teams like Everton, so many clubs, that end up kind of prioritizing set pieces. They're not going to even be prioritizing what they do in open play. They'll actually look to just focus on how they can hurt teams from the dead ball situation. And there are a lot of clubs that do that. And I just wonder if Ange hasn't really fully realized that yet, that there are some clubs like Thomas Franks, for example, at Brentford, they almost work more on the set pieces than what they do even in open play. And it seems like
bonuses for set pieces, Jack.
So Dave took it further. Exactly. They actually are rewarded more from scoring from set pieces than they are from open play. And I just don't know if Ange has fully come to terms with that yet or has fully realized that yet, that these teams are looking to punish you if you show any weaknesses in that type of area. And I do think Spurs need to sign a set piece coach. Some people say there aren't many defensive set piece coaches. I don't really care. I think they just need to then hire someone that's better than what we have, or they just need to completely scrap what they're doing and look at it differently. They just need to address it as soon as possible. So I'd agree with you, Mark.
I don't even buy that there's not many defensive set piece coaches. I mean, it's not hard. If you've got managers that doesn't have all this technology and all these specialist coaches on a Sunday that can organize his team to set up defensively from set pieces and be able to compete from corners, it's not rocket science. We're not asking for an awful lot. And this is one area Ange needs to improve. You look at Bayern Munich the other day. They put two players on the ball shaping up that they were going to go for the shot, but they had no intention whatsoever of going for the shot. They were always hitting that back post. They had 3 or 4 men queuing up there and two that were sprinting in as well, trying to get on the ball. So I already knew where that was going. And that was a weakness from Tottenham. That company already knew about being Burnley manager. And if the ex-Burnley manager is trying to exploit that, I mean, everybody else is. Brentford, for instance. I'm not messing when I say their players are on set piece incentives, bonuses. They are. Go and listen to Ben Mee on the Fuzzcast. I think it was last season. He came out. He said, look, we're all on bonuses for set pieces. That's why we're so good at them. Plus the detail that they put into them. And due to the, I'm pretty sure I heard the Brentford's manager say this when he was asked about set pieces, is the analytics or something like that. You get loads of set pieces a game, and why wouldn't you want to try and take advantage of it? But also at the other end, keep them out. And it is something that we need to be able to work with. I don't know why I'm just so closed off from it. Maybe it was because Conte had set piece specialists in here and he really wants to be sort of different, but he's not averse to working with specialists. He brought in Harry Kewell, if anyone remembers him, the great winger at Leeds, and for Australia. He brought him in because his wingers, every time they got the ball, were looking to go down and win free kicks. He literally brought him in to teach the wingers how to ride contact and keep going with the football. So he does do it. I just don't know why he's not doing it to set pieces. And if he doesn't, it's going to cost him his job. I do feel like it'll cost him his job because it'll be an area that's going to be heavily exploited. Vicario was heavily exploited. But not only that, anyone going up for headers. So, Mark, you're dead right on that one, my man. Beat yourself up, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for your support, Mark. And hopefully you caught my recent video on the midfield, because I know you and I have deferred an opinion on Maddison, but I actually included Maddison in my starting midfield and giving him another chance. So hopefully you give this channel another chance as well, Mark. Appreciate your support, man, for this long. And also another person who's been with us for a very long time. Thank you, Michael. 27 months of membership. Really appreciate you, sir. You've been a wonderful addition to the fan shows. He's saying Premier League prediction, 5th. EFL League Cup, we're going to finish in the semis. FA Cup quarters. Europa League winners. There we are, Michael, another person in my camp. And he says, I really have high hopes for Europa League this season, but we need a winger and defensive midfielder, possibly a wing back. Listen, I definitely agree with you on the wing back. We need another left back to cover for Udogie. And actually, to be honest, in that Europa League competition, I'd rather that we give Udogie a lot of rest and just have someone else to play in that competition so that we don't have to expend him too early and exhaust him too early in the season. But yeah, that's where I hope that Spurs prioritize their season, and their focus is on that Europa League. I think it's still a great competition, and I think it's one that kind of suits Spurs at the moment. It's realistic for us to take ourselves seriously in, and it's realistic for us to have high expectations of. Even if you don't think we'll win it for whatever reason, that's totally okay. But it should be a competition that Spurs fans should like to think that, yeah, we should be able to go deep into that competition. We should be a team that, is hard to match up against. And I have the same expectations as you, Michael. I really hope that we go deep into that one.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I'd love another European trophy. My dad speaks about the fond memories of Tottenham winning the UEFA Cup, and at least he can die happy knowing that his team has been all European conquerors, and I need to add that to my throne. So hopefully that happens, Michael. Big yourself up, my man. And look, hopefully we speak to you on the fan show tonight. You can come on and give us your expectations. If you're not available. Enjoy yourself, and I'll speak to you over the weekend.
And you can even do what Edward has done if you're going to miss it, Michael. Just send us in a video and we'd upload it to all the fan show members of your season predictions. We'd be happy to do that for you. Shawnee Maddox, Bissouma is a joke. Replace him now or in January. Listen, Sean, Bissouma, he's not a smart guy for doing what he has done in the week before a season. I don't know why players film themselves doing stuff like that either. Just what's the point whipping the camera out when you're only going to get in trouble? That's not excusing it or anything, but I just, feel like it's kind of a dumb approach, to be honest, if you're going to be filming yourself doing stuff like that. And then another thing too is that maybe this is slightly biased because I had some criticisms of this in the past, but I wonder if we're going to say this about Bissouma. I know Lloris had a legendary status at the club, but why wasn't this energy also out there for Lloris after his drunk driving episode? I think that's technically, if you're going to compare it, far, far worse, far more technically damaging. There could have been much worse things that could have happened out of that. And if we're going to say this about Bissouma, I don't know what you think. I feel like we could have said something similar about Lloris when he had a very similar, if not worse, incident with Spurs and happening outside the club. But that's just my feelings on it. I think both of them are not smart for their actions and should probably be punished for it in some regard or some way. But I feel like technically someone like Lloris, for some reason, got away with something far, far worse. And Bissouma, might be punished more, which I just don't necessarily understand personally.
Look, the way I see it is, we should judge them on their footballing ability and what they bring to the team. One of our greatest ever players, Gaza, he had his, problems off the field and stuff like that. For me, it only really becomes a problem when they're not performing on the field. And most people think Bissouma isn't, and I think that's why it's getting blown up right now. If he was performing week in, week out, I don't think anyone would turn up an eyelid. What I would say, though, to Bissouma and maybe people in his camp is, name me a player that we've seen being involved with that lasting gas down the years and in the picture, in the front of the sun and all, who have gone on and had a brilliant end to their career or been able to take their career to new heights. They haven't. It's going to catch up with him. He needs to stop that, nip that in the bud and just concentrate on his football. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about another player who came here with all the potential, but for whatever reason has never fulfilled it. So I do think that's something he needs to get a handle on and his camp. But what I would say is, for me, I judge them on the football. If the football ain't working, then of course you look at what they're doing off the field and stuff like that. But look, we've had many players at Tottenham with off the field issues down the years, and I don't think Bissouma should be singled out. Because other players weren't really down the years for their off the field antics.
Yeah, it does allude to the mentality, though. Like Sean is right. It does allude to some of the question marks about his consistency, his mentality. And I could definitely agree with that point. And that's probably what Sean actually meant. I hate to use Lloris as a way to one up you on that, Sean. It probably was actually unfair to even do that because both are bad. Both are very dumb decisions by both players. But let's go on to kind of what we were just touching on. I don't even think we need to go too deep into this, but how many clean sheets will we keep? I don't think we'll keep too many because of my concerns about set pieces, some of my concerns about how we get hit on the counterattack. But Dave, you have slightly more clean sheets than I do. It's not even like that's that many, 10, but I just don't see us keeping that many. We're a team that likes to concede goals.
Yeah, we absolutely love conceding goals, and Ange Postecoglou prefers to score more than his opponent. I suppose that is the aim of football at the end of the day. But you do have to be able to keep clean sheets along the way. We've massive problems from set pieces. That's not only the outfield players, but for Carrio as well. So there's numerous of ways they can get us from there, and we've massive problems being too open on the counter as well. So it's going to be hard to keep clean sheets this year. Ironically, I think we've got a better goalkeeper in Vicario than what we have had in Lloris. And if we could learn how to defend better, I think we could keep a hell of a lot of clean sheets. But I thought, look, I've gone for 10. I think it's a bit ambitious on my behalf, to be honest. I was going to go a single-digit number, but hey, oh.
And biggest win of the season. Dave, I think we share very similar logic in that, at least for me, Newcastle, we've developed this little rivalry with because we keep spanking each other. Newcastle spank us, then we kind of come back and spank them. I just wonder if that's just going to continue for the next few years, where this core of players, I mean, yes, they have rivalry with Arsenal and Chelsea and whatnot, but it actually seems like we almost have a stronger rivalry right now with Newcastle, the way that each club has really been, stepping up their game against each other. So Newcastle, do you share the same logic?
100%. And also, I was thinking, Jack, most people would instantly go for a relegation team, but they just set 11 men behind the ball and they're harder to break down. Whereas Newcastle come to our place, they don't show us any respect like they didn't last season. We gave them a humbling at our place. Also, I think vice versa, the same's going to happen at their place again, this year, where we probably get our biggest humbling as well. But, that's why I've gone Newcastle. I think they show us no respect. And I do think we'll score teams that come up against us that are a bit more open.
Just two clubs who just keep embarrassing each other. Really, it's been quite fun, but also quite painful at the same time. Let's go Ipswich, not a bad shout. They do play a certain brand of football, but you wonder if they might play slightly differently against us, DJ. But really, that's not a bad prediction. Top goal scorers now, Dave. You've gone for Sonny as number 1, Solanke is number 2, and Kulusevski is number 3. Solanke, I just think, is going to get a lot of service. He is the focal striker. We were missing someone like him last season. We saw how many goals Richarlison scored in that month while Sonny was gone. And I just think if Solanke stays fit, he'll get very similar service to what Richie did. And if he can be an even better finisher than Richie, I don't see why he couldn't get close to the numbers that he did at Bournemouth. And that could technically put him very high up there in our top goal scorer list. But why have you gone for Sonny? And why have you put Kulusevski as the third?
Yeah, well, I've gone with Sonny first and foremost because last season he was our club's top goal scorer. He scored the sheer amount of goals and obviously he played a lot of games up front. But I do think we're going to see a much more explosive Sonny this season. I think he's going to be very excited getting back out to that left-hand side. We're going to see him be a massive threat outside the box again, but also running at players where he enjoys and getting on the end of moves. And I do think by having someone like Solanke up front, we'll drag a couple of people more inside him and free up a bit more space for Sonny as well. And plus, I still have my doubts about Solanke. I think he's going to score goals. I'm just trying to work. I'll have to wait to see last season, whether it was just a one-off season or whether he's a player hitting his prime and can continue that. So once I have more evidence, I might change my mind. But for now, I've gone with Sonny. And the reason why I've gone with Kulusevski for third is because I think absolutely everybody's sleeping on him. For some reason, I don't think the fan base are too enamored with him. I don't think they like him. I think a lot of people think he's big and clunky and absolutely crap, whereas I view it differently. I think he's got great feet. I think he's got a great footballing IQ. I just think, he's gone through a bit of a rough spell, and that happens when you're his age, 22, 23. But I think, you will come out of that eventually. And I think he's what he showed in the first season will come back out again, will come to fruition. I think he's going to be unlocked playing more so down the middle, whether that's in one of them midfield spots or whether he comes in and deputizes for Solanke or Richarlison at times. But I do think Kulusevski is going to score us a lot of goals. And if he can add them goals, I think it'll definitely help me get my fourth prediction spot on because he hasn't really contributed too much in recent years. But I do think looking at him pre-season, he's ready to go. He's ready to shut everybody up.
I think if Kulusevski gets minutes ahead of either a Madison or a Brennan Johnson, and he continues the finishing form that he did in preseason, yes, it's only preseason, but Kulusevski did finish off some goals, and he also did actually have, plenty of assists as well. So if he continues that into this upcoming season, I could see him displacing a Brennan Johnson or displacing someone like a James Madison in midfield. And that means he could get plenty of opportunities to score. Kulusevski gets into good chances. He gets good chances, gets into good areas. It's just last year, I think, as I probably said a couple of times, I think he was quite wasteful with some of the chances that he ended up, having. And if he puts those away this year, he actually would end up a lot higher up that goal scorers list, probably more than you might think. But let's move on into our goal of the season. I like this one, Dave, because then it involves some description. So how is Pedro Porro's goal going to go in? What's it going to look like? Is it just going to be a Porro banger? What do you expect?
I mean, look, all I've got to say to justify this is look at his goals since he's arrived and tell me he's not going to have at least one in contention for goal of the season. He's already got goal of the preseason. Why not double down and take goal of the season as well, Jack? He's got a wonderful right foot. Look, Burnley last year, Bayern Munich preseason, he's capable of it. So for me, goal of the season from from our man Porro.
Can't rule out the postman. He just absolutely delivers some bangers for this team. With Sonny, now that he's back on that left wing, I think we're just going to see some more vintage Sonny goals. We even saw a version of it in the preseason against the Korean All-Star team. That was one of my favorite goals that I've seen from Sonny in some time. Yes, it's only preseason, but it still got me out of my chair because it's just nasty when he does things like that, especially with the heel chop and then, cutting inside and just absolutely laces it into the back of the net. It's just a vintage Sonny goal, and I expect that there will be some vintage Sonny goals, and he knows how to hit them from distance. And if we get more, shots from distance where he cuts inside like that, I think we could get some Sonny screamers. And I love it when he scores goals like that. And so I would definitely put it very high up my list. And we were missing those goals from him last year, those kind of special ones, and maybe he'll save some up for us this year. That's my description, but I was so close to doing Porro as well, but decide to go for Sonny on this one. And then next, this is where people probably start to get maybe upset with us or might agree with us. Flop of the season. Dave, would you like to go first on Timo Weenie?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of debate about Werner. You got some who say he's better than what most people give him credit for. Look at some of the goal involvements he had and stuff like that. For me, it was actually between Brennan Johnson and Werner, to be brutally honest with you. I think people are more so going to agree with you because we've outlaid a fee on Brennan Johnson. But I think Werner is going to prove to the club exactly why we didn't have faith to put a proper fee on him and why we shouldn't have loaned him in. I think he's very wasteful in front of goal. Crossing has got a bit better over pre-season. If he can prove that, he might get away with it. But I find him very underwhelming. And also, I look at it a lot of the times, a lot of players don't really want to pass him the ball, even when he's in good positions or making good runs. And there has to be a reason for that. It's obviously what they're seeing on the training pitch. So for me, I'm going to go with Werner.
With Johnson, I'm get onto this later, but connected to one of my young players of the season predictions, I just have a feeling that Johnson could end up losing his starting spot. And we brought him in for 47 million pounds. And if he loses his starting spot, there are already a lot of frustrated fans with him, like Dave and I, who at times I think have been fair to him. At times, I'll admit, I probably have been harsh on him. I think it's a bit of both. I just feel like this is the season. You and I have agreed on this, Dave, whether you like Johnson or whether you don't like Johnson. He has to basically replicate the same numbers that he did last year, if not do better than that, in order to silence some of his critics and in order to silence some of his haters. And I'm not confident that he'll do that. I don't think he'll get the same numbers that he did last year. I think he'll end up actually losing his spot because last year I think he benefited from the fact that there wasn't that much competition for him in that right wing spot. And I wonder if he'll lose out to someone like a Kulusevski who might start playing well. He might lose out to, I don't know, Sonny maybe moves over to the right side and Richarlison takes the left wing spot. You just never know. Maybe a Mikey Moore ends up, taking some spots, in from Brennan Johnson. Druzilla, there he is. I was waiting for him to come into the chat on this one. You thought it would be Dave, but it was actually me, Drew, when it came to the flop of the season on Brennan Johnson. It's just that I think it's make or break for him here. He already has so much attention on him, and I think he has to basically replicate the same numbers last year with also better performances in order to silence people like me. And I'm not confident that he'll do that. I think eventually he will lose his starting spot and Ange will have to look for someone else to depend on. And if that's the case, I think you can well and label him then a flop of the season. That's my logic.
No, that's absolutely fair. Look, for me, I was tossing and turning between both, to be brutally honest with you. Charlie Malik says, Dave, if there is no expectation, how can he flop? Look, most people call this signing smart, very clever business by Tottenham. That he's going to add a bit of squad depth. There's only me and a few others that really have these strong opinions on Werner. Apart from that, there are a lot of the fan base and, outside of this channel and other channels where people think he's a good signing. So, I do think there's no expectations on him from me. Simply anything he does, I think, is an added bonus. But I do think from others, there's that expectation. And, I think there should be. He's on, 185K a week, second or third highest paid player at this football club right now. There should be expectations on him.
And hopefully, Drew, if you're still in the UK, hopefully you're enjoying your time up there with your family and everything so that you can avoid some of Dave and I's, delusional predictions, away from your ears. Big up, Drew. Really appreciate you.
Big up, Drew, as well. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself back in the homeland. And then we've got King Huddle just quickly says, Dave, Dyer or Johnson, who's higher on your hated tier list? First of all, I don't hate Brennan Johnson. I think he's a very nice guy. I think, he's the sort of guy I'd like my daughter to marry. He's a very nice person. I just don't rate his footballing ability. There's a huge difference between that and hating a guy. However, I did hate Dyer. I thought he was a worm. Threw the club under the bus at every opportunity he got. Threw the fans under the bus at every opportunity he got. But when it came to us calling out his performances, all of a sudden it wasn't allowed. And considering, he was a part of the leadership group, he was a massive problem on why we had massive turnover of managers. So yes, I do hate Dyer. So Dyer's higher up. Hopefully that explains it.
Maybe if the members ever wanted us to do a hate tier maker, let us know, and we'll be happy to make one for you guys. I'm not sure if we'd make that public, though. I think we'd have to put that behind the members wall. But if anybody be interested in that, we'd be happy to do something like that. That would be quite fun. Young Player of the Year. This is kind of related to my Brennan Johnson prediction, Dave. I think Mikey Moore has a strong chance of taking Brennan Johnson's spot on that right wing. And he's not even a natural right winger. It's not a position that he even played in the academy, but he's looked very good there. He's worked his tail off. He's quality in possession. Just has that bit of class about him, Mikey Moore. And I just wonder if Brennan Johnson's performances start to wane, if they start to drop, Mikey Moore is just waiting for that one chance. And I think he'd take it. I think he would take it. So I think he could end up being the Young Player of the Year for that reason. And, plenty of Spurs fans know about Mikey, but maybe not the whole world knows about Mikey yet. So that's why I think he could get the Young Player of the Year. He might burst onto the scene.
Well, first of all, I really hope he does. I do think it comes down to Ange Postecoglou actually willing to take that risk. So far pre-season, he hasn't put him in with the first 11, which worries me. But I think he's a generational talent. I think as soon as he gets the opportunity, he's going to take it. However, I think we've got another generational talent in our midfield in Lucas Bergvall. I think he surprised many people, especially me, on what he was going to contribute. I knew we got a really good player in here, but I did think it would take him a lot more time to adapt because people go, he's come from the Swedish league. No, most of his football was played in the second tier of the Swedish league, which is worse than League of Ireland and stuff like that. However, he's made the adaptation and fitted in there absolutely superbly. He couldn't have wished for any better. And the fact that Spurs fans are sitting here calling for him to start over Maddison shows the initial impact that this guy has had. And again, like Mikey Moore, I think this guy is going to find himself in the team very, very quickly. And when he gets that opportunity, I don't think he's going to give it up. I think if he doesn't end up player of the season, come the end of the season, when we come back and do our reviews, I think it will come down to injuries. He's had a couple of little things over the course of pre-season in the adaptation, to the intensity and stuff like that. And that's the only thing that might hamper his progression this season. But that's why I've gone for Bergvall.
Seems like people in the chat sort of think both answers are correct. They think Bergvall is, a good choice. I think that's a smarter choice. I think I went for a bit more of a risk with Mikey Moore, and I'm expecting him to get more minutes than maybe what people might have expected originally. That's where my prediction comes from. But with Bergvall, I think everything Dave said there is absolutely spot on. I mean, the fact that he's already, being spoken about, replacing Maddison. I mean, that just shows how good this kid is, and it shows how much he's impressed everyone. THFC till I die, Dermotron in the house saying, big up guys, leave Johnson alone. Sorry, we can't, Dermot, because it's season prediction time. So Johnson is going to be a heavy focus for us in our season predictions. We'll try to leave him alone maybe during the fan show, and you as well as others can come on and feel free to disagree with us, give us different opinions about Johnson or other players in the team that you might think could struggle. But sadly, with season predictions time, Dave, we have to put our chest out. We have to put our necks out, and we have to embrace the criticism or embrace the difference in opinion. And sorry, Dermotron, you might have to close your ears for some of these predictions, sir.
And I'll just add quickly, I don't think it's about us leaving him alone. We're drawn to him with our views because of how crap he's been. It's actually up to him to perform and prove us wrong, So hopefully he does do that, Dermo. But we're not picking on him. We're only, judging on what we see. It's about him now taking that on board or proving us wrong and saying you don't know what you're talking about. So hopefully he does that, Dermo.
Time to shut us up, Dermotron. Can your favorite player do that this upcoming season? But let's go into most improved. And you've gone for Kulusevski. Great shout, Dave. I'll let you go on this first, and then I'll explain Bentancur.
Yeah, Kulusevski, I think, with the fan base right now, many people were happy when Napoli's interest was there, going 50 million, let's cash in, let's get our money back. And a lot of fans have found these performances underwhelming. And rightly so. I'm not having a pop-up fans. They're absolutely right to, question him over the last year and a half. They're right to question him on his right foot. However, he's a player that Ange Postecoglou does play in multiple positions and has done since he's arrived. Now, you could argue, that's because he hasn't nailed down one spot. But I'd also argue it's because I think Ange Postecoglou trusts them to be able to move into different situations and be able to adapt to it and stuff like that. And when you look at the way he's hit preseason running, I think he's shown many fans why he should be kept around here and what he can add to this Tottenham team. And I also argue with better players around him, I think he's gonna thrive. And if we can play him as close as Son to possible, I think he's going to be even better, because that link up between him and Son preseason, they clearly understand each other's game. And if Kulusevski was as crap as everybody said he was, then Son wouldn't be able to link up with him, because he wouldn't be anywhere near his level in terms of being able to do it, but also the brain and stuff like that. And that's why I say I think he's got a very high footballing IQ. When you play him with the likes of Johnson and Werner or players like that, that's when he becomes very underwhelming, because he doesn't have anybody he can really sort of link up with. No one else is really on his level and stuff like that. So for me, I think he's going to shock many people. I think he's going to surprise many people. And I think he's going to be our most improved player this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit similar form that he hit when we first signed him.
I've gone for Bentancur because with the recent Basuma news, I expect Basuma to probably not start. I wonder, or maybe he might, but I expect him not to start in these upcoming games as sort of a form of punishment, or just also a way to kind of take him out of the pressure in the firing line. And Bentancur is someone who just kind of strikes me as a guy who doesn't want his Tottenham career, his Tottenham position taken away from him. He's a guy that did perform really well for us under Antonio Conte in that two-man midfield with Højbjerg. He also wanted to start the season strong with Ange Postecoglou. I think he did. But then he picked up those two injuries, and he did such a great job coming back, inspired. And then he picked up that second injury. And just since then, it's taken him a while, I think, to get back to his best form. And I think that's totally understandable and okay. So I feel like Spurs fans, to a degree, might have forgotten at one point maybe how good Bentancur can be, or even how good he has been for us in the past. And before he picked up that injury at the World Cup for Uruguay, he was looking like one of the better performing midfielders in Europe. He was just that all action, was everywhere defensively, has that lovely bit of feet and class on the ball. He's a great ball carrier. And I think he's actually quite similar to Basuma, where he's a very good dribbler, likes to carry it through midfield, has that bit of flair in his game as well, but then knows how to get stuck in, knows how to get into the tackle as well, and can pop up with a goal or two, Bentancur, as well. You can't rule that out. He does know how to pop up with a goal. And I think Bentancur, if he kind of replicates that previous form that he had before the big injuries, I think he could look at probably the most improved player, because he lost his position to Pop Matasar. He lost his position to Basuma. And I wonder if he'll take it back this season. That's my prediction. He'll take back his position in the midfield as either a number 6 or a number 8. And I would say that can qualify as a most improved.
No, fair point. And I do think there's a real opportunity for Bentancur to come back, because he's almost like a new signing coming in here, really. Ange Postecoglou didn't get the best of Bentancur last year because of the injuries and stuff like that. So, I think, look, it could be either of these two, to be brutally honest with you. K32 says Jed Spence, which is a fair one. I mean, he's coming in with a clean slate. And then Zeddy's put me under the pressure, says Kulu didn't perform last season either. But you didn't chat shit about him, first of all. It's a different conversation around Kulusevski, because Kulusevski came in and hit the ground running when we signed him in January, right up until the end of the season, and really contributed. So the conversation around Kulusevski is, how do we get him back to that player? With Brennan Johnson, he hasn't come in and contributed the way Kulusevski did when he first arrived at Tottenham. So it's a different conversation altogether, when it comes to Brennan Johnson and the shit I give him. Plus, with Kulusevski, I have seen that end product with him. With Brennan Johnson, I haven't. So I think it's two different entire conversations, and said I think you're conflating the two of them. I get it, but I've answered your question. I'm not afraid to, and hopefully you understand my point. Like I said, I think it's a complete different conversation around Kulusevski than Brennan Johnson. Plus, people forget. People go with Brennan Johnson. He's 22 years of age. He's a young lad. Give him time. When Kulusevski arrived at Tottenham, he was 21 years of age and hit the ground running. Complete different again. So that's why, Zeddy. Hopefully you understand. Fair question.
I was also pretty critical of Kulusevski last season, though, despite Dave's love for the guy. So I think in some sense we tried to provide as much balance as we could on the Kulusevski argument, because I was quite critical of his lack of finishing. Also, just certain moments when, a lot of the moves felt like they were breaking down in the final moment from Kulu. He also, just towards the end of the season, really looked like he was lacking in confidence. Pretty much the whole forward line looked like they were lacking in confidence, but Kulusevski definitely you wouldn't rule out in that regard either. So for the most part, I'm actually expecting Kulusevski to hopefully change things around for himself. Because, yeah, I think he did have a disappointing last season. That's for sure. But final one, Dave, player of the season. We both agreed with each other here. This is the final one for you guys. And before we give our final prediction, anybody that has tuned in of late or has come into the back end of this show, we are running our fan show just after this. It will be up there, the link for all the fan show members. So please come on, give your own season predictions, especially if you have disagreed with us or agreed with us at any point in this live stream. But then also, too, everyone, please, 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 there are some spots left in our fantasy draft league. It is up there for the fan show members, only a few spots left. And if you can make the video call as well as the draft tonight, which will be at 10 p.m. UK time, we would love to have you. We would love to have some people involved. To be part of the banter, just being part of, I think a fun thing that will be, featured for members, but will also help us all grow closer as a community. And I think it'll be a fun league. So please, if you aren't already in the members league for every member of every tier of this community, if you are a fan show member or an elite member, hit that link. It's in the community section for you guys. Come on, have your say. You could be a member of that fantasy draft league. But a fan show is also going to happen just after this for you guys. But yes, Dave, we've both gone for Sonny as our player of the season. Why have you gone for Sonny? And I'd imagine I have similar reasons.
He's our player of the season most seasons, isn't he? He's one of our most consistent performers across the campaign as well. You just know what you're going to get from Sonny from the start of the season all the way to the end, and he's never, ever going to give up. And he's probably one of our only world-class players, especially in that forward area. And look, I know we've got Romero. I know we've got Van de Ven. Absolutely fantastic players. Porro as well, another fantastic player. And I really like Adoji. However, forward players get a lot more recognition because they're the ones that go and win games. So on that basis, that's why I've gone with Sonny.
I've gone with Sonny because he's going to be playing in his natural position again. I think he had to take one for the team last year by playing down the middle. I think we all saw that it just didn't suit him, in most games because a lot of the teams that we came up against just pretty much played with every man behind the ball. And Sonny only plays well, I think, as a striker when there is space to run him behind and when the team is playing a high line. Then you can really take advantage of his pace. You can take advantage of his really well-timed runs. He also makes really smart runs as well, Sonny. I don't think people give him enough credit for that, the intelligence of the runs that he makes. But that only happens when there is space in behind. And what we really were missing was a winger that's actually quality on the ball. We had to deal with Werner. We had to deal with Johnson. We had to deal with the Kulusevski that was really inconsistent last season out on the wings. And I think now having Sonny back in that forward line in his true natural position, out wide on that left, I think we'll start to see the vintage Sonny again. We'll see goals. We'll see assists. We'll just see him be a really influential player, and he'll be a good creative player on the wings, not just a goal scorer, but I think he'll pick up a lot of assists actually playing out on that left wing, not just goals. So I expect Sonny to have really good numbers. Maybe I'll put it down to something like one of those kind of split sort of seasons where it's like 15 goals, 13 assists. I could see him having something like that this upcoming season where he'll pick up a lot of assists with someone like Solanke down the middle, but then he'll also pick up a lot of goals for himself as well. So I think Sonny's going to be player of the season because he'll finally be able to play his more natural position. But I think that's our season predictions, Dave. Hopefully people enjoyed these. If you can for us on your way out, smash the like button. Do become a fan show member if you want to give your own season predictions today, because that will be happening in about 30 minutes time. And also later tonight, we'll be doing the draft league, and then the season begins and the madness begins. The roller coasters begin, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to another crazy up and down season, as Spurs seasons tend to be with you guys. And we do appreciate you for supporting this channel, for coming on and just sharing your opinions with us. And I'm looking forward to another roller coaster, Dave.
No, look, I'm really excited. Jack's season's about to start. You know me, I get very depressed during the transfer window. There's rumors coming left, right, and centre. I absolutely hate it. I just want us to sign players and get on with the job. Look, I was buzzing for preseason. I'm absolutely buzzing that football's back now. And hopefully we can have a lot better of a campaign this year than what we did last year, and hopefully be able to sustain some sort of good form a lot longer than what we did last year. If we do, we've got a good chance to have a good season. And look, I'm just delighted that there's been no real sort of massive upheaval heading into this season. I think that's a huge plus. But guys, we've got plenty of preseason, it is preseason content coming out to you guys. We've got channel predictions coming out tomorrow for ahead of the season. Then we'll also have creators predictions for the big game against Leicester. For the member, we also had Jack done a video yesterday with a Leicester fan that'll be coming out. Predicted lineup. And then we've got the fan show tonight. So there's plenty of content coming your way. Stay tuned because the big man is back. And so is his bloody internet. And by the way, I got onto it properly this time because now, no matter when the internet goes, I've got backup. So I will never be off your screens.
Squad depth on the internet side for Dave. That's absolutely quality there. If only Spurs could do the same. But we'll see you, everybody, for the fan show. Would love to have you guys on for it. If you can't make the fan show tonight, because understandably it has been moved a couple of times this week, feel free to send us in your season predictions. Edward did in case he didn't make the show. So I'd be happy to upload other people's season predictions in case they can't make it tonight and you are a fan show member, because we don't want you to have to miss out on that. So anybody who does have season predictions, send them in or join us for the fan show tonight. And then we have the draft later tonight as well. So please, everybody, would love to see more people get involved there. But yeah, we'll leave you there. Come on, you Spurs. Big season ahead for Anjan as well as this squad. And we'll see you next time, everybody. We never stop.
See you at 7.